Welcome back to another episode of Meredyth with a Y. I am your host, Meredyth Willits, and today we have Nahum. Damn it. Say it.
It's not damn it. No, it's Nahum Vizakis.
Nahum Vizakis. I even wrote it, but as soon as I said it, it sounded wrong. He is the author of the Biohackers Guide to Spiritual Bodybuilding, and we are going to be talking about everything from bodybuilding to plant medicine and everything in between, so stay with us. Hello, everyone. This is Meredyth with a Y, and I am your host, Meredyth Willits. Today, we are going to go deep, changing lives, and I am giving you the keys to the castle. I told you I would short circuit. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Meredith. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you were on the TV show Wipeout, which I have to know about because my kids love that show.
Yeah, it's funny because I had never watched the show when I got on there. I got one of the people that works for Wipeout just messaged me on Facebook and was like, "Hey, would you like to be on this show?" I'm like, sure, well, why not? At the time, I was at the peak of my bodybuilding career. I had just gotten out of the military. I thought I was in great shape. What I didn't realize was the kind of shape you had to be on in order to, be on that show. Yeah. So I went in there blind. And let me tell you, the medical screening they do for that is extensive. It took 3 days.
Get out.
I'm not kidding. So I was like, this is more extensive than my special forces selection medical assessment. So it's like, wonder what's going on. So it was, I ended up going at 5 a.m. in February in the mountains of LA, which it gets pretty cold up there. Yeah. And the theme was brains versus bronze, right? So of course they wanted all the bronze to show off their body, and they gave all the brains wetsuits. And I was like, something's off here. Something's very strange. So in the morning before we started, they had to break the ice in the water because it was frozen over. And I was not prepared for what had hit me. I got my butt handed to me. Let's just put it that way. And I had hypothermia for like a week. I was laying in bed. I was out of it. And I was the only bodybuilder to pass the qualification round.
Get out.
Not a single bodybuilder, because the water was so cold. At first, they have water come over this ravine. And when it hit me, I blacked out for a second. And then I opened my eyes and I see this big Mickey Mouse hand coming in just right in front of my face, and it knocked me over. And then I get knocked over in a pool of water that's freezing. It was so cold that my body started locking up on me. Yeah, I almost couldn't move. And so,
and that's something you got to train for. I mean, you got to be used to being in cold water. You got to be mentally prepared. I mean, that's a whole enchilada that they did not warn you for.
Nope, they did not. And I think they kind of did it on purpose. Yeah, but I should have done my due diligence. But either way, it's a good 90-second clip on YouTube to be able to show the grandkids someday.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Yeah. And you were, like you said, you were in special forces. Mm-hmm. And so what's that all about?
So I was in a section of special forces called EOD. It's explosive ordnance disposal. It's essentially the bomb squad for the military. So I did a lot of interagency work, and so essentially I was defusing bombs over in Iraq.
So you were like that guy in the movie. What's his name?
Hurt Locker.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was Jeremy Renner that played the guy in the suit. Yeah, I was a team leader when I got over there, and it was of course the movies, they present it in a certain way. It wasn't exactly like that. That was actually when I had my first big spiritual awakening.
Really?
Yeah, because up until that point in my life, I had been living this idea, this egoic understanding of who I was. And when I finally got to the point where I was facing the possibility of death, like death was staring me in the face, it hit me in a way that was foreign to me. I didn't understand it. And I froze up, and I started questioning my identity, everything. It brought me into a sort of existential crisis. And
Mhm.
from that point forward, everything started to change in my life. I suddenly didn't want to be there. I suddenly didn't really want to do that job. I suddenly was like, I don't, what is my purpose for living? What, like, this, none of this feels right anymore. And so I had to do a lot of deep soul searching. And of course, in the military, when you start to go into this kind of place, which unfortunately a lot of guys do, they just start loading you up with pills, and
Mhm.
you get too out of whack, and then they put you on suicide watch, and then you're basically an outcast now in the military,
Yeah.
and and so they kind of perpetuate the cycle. And I had a I feel very fortunate that I survived that whole process, because I had a lot of friends that didn't make it. It was
Mm.
really, really sad and unfortunate. But that's actually also why I do what I do now. I help a
Yeah.
lot of veterans to overcome those experiences and processes. And a lot of guys don't really, like, there is no open resource for that. There's starting to be now. Now that the truth is starting to come out about PTSD, about TBI, about how getting blown up can, like, affect the brain in all these misunderstood ways. Back This was 15 years ago,
Yeah.
right? So there was nothing like that around when I was going through, and I attribute that to just God guiding me, even though I didn't understand at the time. Right? God works in mysterious ways. That saying is so incredibly true. And I feel like as you grow and you go through these layers of experiences, and it brings awareness to parts of you that you didn't understand. And for me personally, there's been many times where I've been brought to the edge of my feeling or ability to be able to handle it. Right? And and what it did is it brought me to this place where I decided to start voluntarily going into those places, as opposed
Mm.
to allowing the world to push me in the corner, so to speak.
Yeah.
I started testing myself and pushing myself into those corners so that I wasn't a victim of the circumstance,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Yeah.
just and that's just, I feel, how God has chosen for me to go through my life. And at this point, finally, I'm seeing the results of the hard work and the ability to move through that, because now I'm able to help a lot of other people.
Well, I think when you're a bodybuilder, it does take a certain person to push themselves in that way and to be so I mean, you have to and my dad's a bodybuilder.
Okay.
And, so I've grown up with back in the '70s, he was eating peanut butter and honey in a bowl, right? Because
Yeah,
that was, like, the
that's old
thing,
school. Yep.
right? And then as he's progressed, you learn about whey protein and, all these different things.
Yeah.
But I do think it takes a crazy person to be a bodybuilder. I really like, people are like, "Oh, you do this, this, and" No, you have to be just as crazy about eating healthy as people are about eating junk food. Like, if I asked my dad right now, he's 70, just turned 79, he still goes to the gym, I think 4 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah. If I said, "Dad, will you eat an M&M?" Absolutely never. Like, just
Yeah, I
he
get that.
is so focused on his physique. If he doesn't have, an 8-pack at 79, he's just devastated. He's a trip. But it
Well,
takes neuroses. I mean, like, to be a bodybuilder, I think that you have to be a contemplative person, one that thinks and thinks about the way that they show up in the world and the way that they present and what they and it's not necessarily just ego. It's more than that. It's spiritual. Like your book, it's spiritual. I mean, can bodybuilding be non-spiritual? I don't think so. I don't know.
there's a fine line. There's a healthy way to live a bodybuilding lifestyle, and there's a very unhealthy way, and I've done both. So for me, and you're right, it takes a certain mindset
Yeah.
to go in there. Now, whether you have to ask yourself, if anyone is interested in stepping into that. lifestyle or doing something like competing in a bodybuilding show, you have to ask yourself what the intention behind getting into that sort of process in your life. If the intention is coming from, well, I hate myself, or I don't like looking at myself, or I'm insecure, or my girlfriend cheated on me, or my boyfriend hurt me, and I'm going to get them back because, to look good. Or if you seek external validation, if you're coming from a wounded place, then you're basically just going to strengthen that wound in the process of bodybuilding, right? You're going to undereat, you're going to train too hard, and you're going to end up burning the candle at both ends and crashing. You're going to do too much performance enhancing drugs. You're going to try to take too much stuff to push you too far. And, when I first started bodybuilding was actually in Iraq. My first
Oh, yeah.
bodybuilding show was in Iraq. When I had deployed over there, I was waiting for a team member that had some legal stuff he was finishing. So I had 2 months where I was just a background guy, right? So there was a couple contractors at Camp Taji where I was at in Baghdad, and they saw me in the gym one day. They were like, "Hey, you would be a great, candidate to compete if we throw on a show. Will you do it?" And I was like, "Man, screw it. I got nothing else to do.
Right.
Let's go." Right. So I had all the time in the world, and I won the overall. And when I did, I caught the bug, so to speak. I became obsessed. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it is one of those things where you do have to kind of become obsessed with it, because it's
Yes.
every waking hour and sleeping hour, and every aspect and component of your life, of your thought process, everything comes into play. And when I didn't really know what I was doing at first. I didn't have a coach. I was relying on forums from bodybuilding.com way back then. And so I just ate protein like 7-8 times a day. And I just
Yeah.
worked out like 3 times a day. And yeah, I looked great. But looking back on it, like, I pushed myself way out of balance. In fact, when you undereat getting ready for a show for too long, afterwards, the rubber band has to come back, right? So I was I was at the point where I was like, when I was drying out for the show, I was hallucinating about like making out with cheeseburgers and stuff. It was really weird. My mind was going a little loopy, and it's easy to get loopy in that last week. And so, like, after the show, when I won, I locked myself in my little housing unit, and I just like binged on cookies and cake and
Oh,
and
geez.
and pancakes and all kinds of crappy food, and I gained like 30 pounds in 3 days.
Wow.
So that I realized that wasn't probably the healthiest thing to do.
Yeah. Not sustainable.
No, absolutely not. So after I got back from Iraq, like, I was going through the medical board process for PTSD. And again, like, I came back to bodybuilding when I was back in the civilian world is a little bit different. So because I was sustaining a daily systemic life. And I competed in 3 shows in a row, and I won the overall every time. But this
Wow.
time I found a healthier approach. But once I got out of the military, that was when, like, things really took off. But that's also when I started messing around with performance enhancing drugs. Now, that wasn't like, I didn't go too crazy with that at first. It was really when I was trying to go pro, and I hired a coach, and I wanted to go from amateur to pro. That's when, like, I started taking too much stuff, and trying to gain too much size too fast. And I started realizing, like, I was not feeling good.
Yeah.
Back then in the amateur level, I was feeling great. I had momentum, and it was a driving force for me to better myself. And then it kind of went over that threshold where I started, like, I was trying to get supplement sponsors, and I was trying to, like, make it out in the world of bodybuilding. But I found later on that I was kind of getting addicted to the external validation.
Yeah.
Right. And it just wasn't getting me anywhere. And eventually, like, I went through another identity crisis in 2013. I went for my pro card at nationals, and it went terrible. I went up a weight class, and those guys were just monsters. They were a
Yeah.
whole different ball game. And it's like, well, clearly this isn't for me. So what do I do now? And that's actually when I ended up going to massage school soon after that. And after I went to massage school, it's also when I found ayahuasca. And so those two things.
How many times have you sat? for ayahuasca?
With ayahuasca? Probably somewhere around 2000 now.
What?
Yeah.
No.
But I no longer sit with it for me. I serve it for others.
I was gonna say, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
how are you still here?
Yeah. Yeah, but
I sat twice and I'm like, I was like, it's a lot.
well, ayahuasca taught me a lot. And what I started to realize when I was in the medicine, because I would be sitting in ceremony and I would be able to function in the medicine. And I was actually start doing like energy work and body work on people like during ceremonies. And I would be assisting the facilitators with people that were having a hard time. And like after about 500 ceremonies was when I first decided to serve the medicine, but I just served myself at first because I was
Holy
terrified. I was scared.
cats.
Um, but I went for about, let's see, 2014 to 2020. That's what, 6 years? For about 6 years, I was sitting 2 to 3 times a month. And then I took
Holy
a break,
crap.
and I found Iboga.
I don't know what that is.
So Iboga is like the African version of ayahuasca, but the trip lasts 20 to 30 hours. It's that one's not for everybody. Iboga is the most powerful medicine on the planet. And so we would do Iboga and Bufo
I know what
together
that was. Mhm.
in the ceremony. So I started working with that for about a year and a half, and my entire life changed during that period of time. It was pretty wild and crazy. And Iboga definitely taught me the deepest, most difficult lessons. It was kind of like ayahuasca was the cosmic mother, if you will, the spirit of ayahuasca, and then the spirit of Iboga was the cosmic father. So I almost
Ooh.
felt like ayahuasca was teaching me, helping me understand my abandonment wounds with my mother, and then Iboga was teaching me the abandonment wounds from my biological father and my stepfather,
Mm.
right? And helping me grow and clear. And at the time that I was doing that too, I was going through a really tough custody battle. A lot of change happened in that period of time. One of my best friends died. I had
Sorry.
two of my friends, got spiritually attacked when they were down in Peru from some other shamans. It was like a period of time of a lot of spiritual attacks, a lot of weird, uh, almost I want to say sorcery kind of stuff where I came face to face with a lot of demonic, dark entities, and I was healing people. I found that I had developed this gift from doing all this work where I was able to extract these demonic entities out of people. And I didn't really fully understand what was going on, at that time. Now I've simplified and streamlined the process, and I don't really like, there was a good 10-year period of time where I was in the medicine and I was doing, all that work, but I kind of feel like that was my education. And so after Iboga, I came back to bodybuilding. I kind of let go of bodybuilding for a while, but I came back to it, and I feel like I came back to it in a much more healthy, sustainable way,
Yeah.
where I realized that, my ego got sort of caught up, and I was compensating a little bit when I initially started. Bodybuilding is what kind of kept me sane
Yep.
going through the process
Grounded.
of the
Yep.
military stuff. And then when I got out and I tried to excel, I was still excelling from that place without dealing with the initial pain. Right. So
Yeah.
I had to step back from it and really process a lot of that pain. And it brought a lot of awareness to the parts of myself where I was still trying to prove myself to the world, still seeking that external validation, still not believing truly in myself. My heart had not fully opened yet. And
Mm.
now you can see it big time out in the bodybuilding world. I'd say about 80 to 90% of the people that compete in the sport are coming from an unhealed, unhealthy place of
Oh,
trying to prove.
I'm sure. Because I mean, it's either it all comes together or it's a distraction. And you have to like check
Yeah,
yourself. You know what I mean? Like anything could be a distraction over shopping, over eating, over sex, over religion,
right.
whatever it is, you have to decide like, am I distracting myself or is this a healthy activity where everything's melded together. The one thing as I'm listening to you speak, because I am on social media a lot, and is the men, most of my clients as a life coach are women.
Okay.
And when I do get a man, on the other end of the phone or whatever, I'm like so excited because I'm like, ooh, this one wants to heal. Perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited about it. But I posted a video the other day, and it was me just duetting this video about our childhood in the 70s and 80s, and like the last time you went school shopping with your mom, or the last time
Mm,
you went on a bike ride with all your friends down the street, and like you never know when the last time is going to be. It just all of a sudden it was the last time you rode with your friends. And I really try to pay attention to the comments, and so many of them are men. It's the last time I held my mom's hand. It's the last time, like, that really, like, the pain in these comments from men
yeah.
is very different than the women. The women are like, more to do with actual loss, like I lost my mom or my husband died. But the men, the energy from the men is a deep, deep sadness. And it's just, when I look at you and I listen to you, I'm like, oh my God, this guy can really make a difference, because he's not coming from, this hippie woo woo, elephant pants covered in crystals, because that's kind of how I am. Like, I
Yeah.
don't play the role on television, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you seem to be very grounded. You've done the things. You've been the man guy. You played all those roles and
Yeah.
still are, and yet you're saying, "Hey guys, catch up."
Mm,
Like
yeah.
like like it's time now to meld all of this together. And I just think your voice is incredibly important during this time.
Thank you.
Um I had a guy reach out to me. It was a whole kerfluffle on social media.
Kerfluffle.
And and he was telling me, he's like, he was abused by women. His mother was abusive. And he said a lot of men are the way that they are, not blaming women, but having a conversation, that we need to look at the mother-son relationship, and that
Yeah.
so much hatred can come from that place. So much anger towards women can come from that place. And
Mhm.
how do we heal the mother-son wound to then create, and also the mother, the son father wound of like, be a man, don't cry,
Right.
stiff upper lip, like all
Yeah.
this programming, this patriarchal programming that men suffer from and then act out on women. Like, I think that we're missing so many steps in society of how are we creating violent, abusive men?
You got that right. And it's always comes down to your relationship to your caregivers when you were a child. It's
Yep.
always abandonment or rejection issues from that place in life. And you have to dig all the way down to it. And men have a more difficult time being vulnerable, 100%. And like you said, like a lot of men that do become vulnerable, they're a lot of them, stereotypically speaking, are more beta male, kind of like
Or appear
like
to
you
be
yeah,
visually.
or appear to be. And so now on the flip side of that, though, the men that I do see doing the work is the most hardcore, Navy SEALs, Special Forces guys that have gotten out, former CIA, former FBI, guys that have seen a lot of death and have been there and done that because they've pushed themselves to that point and they've hit their threshold. A lot of people have not pushed themselves, so they're sitting in this middle ground where it's not, they're not 100% sure that they want to be vulnerable because they haven't pushed themselves to that point. Unfortunately, a lot of men seem to have to be pushed to that point in order to ask for help. I am hoping that that's changing because more and more men, I feel more and more like masculine men are starting to speak out in a more vulnerable way because vulnerability is where empowerment happens. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, society has taught our culture that it's the opposite, right? I
Yeah.
even like connecting to young athletes, right? Young athletes are always, because when you're younger, you can push yourself. You know, when I was in my 20s and 30s in the military, I could go, like, I could sleep for 2 hours and then be woken up at 4:30, you know, with a hangover and go for a 15-mile run. I'd be puking along the way and I'd be feeling like crap, but I would still do it. Right nowadays, forget about it.
Yeah.
I can't function like that. But when you're younger, you have the capacity to handle this kind of stuff. But just because you have the capacity does not mean that you should be so tunnel vision determined to be this certain way that you're going to blind yourself to the opportunities for real vulnerability and spiritual growth. So I've actually you know, this is a big part of the reason why I wrote my book, but also I'm working and collaborating with other people to help teach this younger generation how to voluntarily step into this place of vulnerability. There's many ways this can be done, and biohacking is a very you know, powerful culprit to be able to offer that to people.
What is that? I mean, I've heard it. You hear it out, the buzzword biohacking. What
Yeah.
is that if for the listeners?
Well, overall, fundamentally, biohacking is doing something that will optimize the body and the mind, doing
Okay.
something naturally. So, take an example would be a cold plunge, right?
Okay.
When you decide to get into a cold plunge, and the Navy SEALs have been doing this for like 40 years, right? But we're just kind of catching up to the science of it now. But when you get into that cold water, your body goes into shock, right? You can hyperventilate. You can like all your blood rushes to your core and it activates those fight or flight responses. So you're voluntarily going into this place where you're losing your, like, you can't think. You're getting out of your head. It's pulling you in your body and it's activating these autonomic functions that normally would never activate otherwise. So then you have someone, a coach or a guide, right? To you either do a breath work session before you get in there, or while you're in there, they walk you through how to still yourself, how to take control back when your body kind of just, you know, goes haywire.
Yeah.
And stepping into those places, that's incredibly vulnerable, right? Or even getting into like a sauna for, you know, for a while. This can expose, are you hydrated? Are you not? Like, you know, are you claustrophobic? Why are you claustrophobic? What is the energy behind and the intention behind all these autonomic functions starting to go haywire? And you voluntarily go into these things. Now, when you train, you can also go into these places when you train, but you have to push yourself in some very creative ways.
Yeah.
David Goggins is one man that's notorious for being able to find people's thresholds and identifying where they can be better, because our mind wants to quit when our body can still keep going, right? But we also want to understand what is the intention behind keeping going,
Hmm.
right? And understanding if you have an autonomic response to something like, say, you know, cold plunge. If you have a misunderstood autonomic response, meaning your body reacts in a way that you don't expect, you don't anticipate, or you don't understand, then what is it that you have to do to be able to understand it?
Yeah.
Right? The good thing is about these is the major factor or function is it gets you out of your head. And when you're out of your head, you're out of your ego, and then you're able to listen to yourself. But nobody teaches us these things.
Isn't that crazy? Like these things that we're discovering or have been discovered but not necessarily talked about in social media, I think is a great vehicle for sharing information and
Yeah.
educating people about things that they would never learn about unless they were going to, you know, India or Bali or Costa
Right.
Rica or right. And we're, now social media is bringing all of this quote back home to the
Hmm.
masses to be able to find out about it and experience. I mean, for myself, when I went to a retreat a couple of years ago to Costa Rica, we did breath work.
Mm.
It was elemental breath work. and I was on another planet. I'm not a drug doer necessarily,
Right.
but when we were doing the fire breath, where
Mm.
basically, you could start to get the crab hands and stuff
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. If you
Oh,
I
yeah,
didn't
I've
do
been there.
that, thank goodness. I
Okay.
stayed away from the crab hands. Um, but I was on another planet, and I'm like, "That's better than I mean, I thought it was more healing. Well, I'm not gonna say that. It was a very different healing than ayahuasca. It showed me very
Oh, yeah.
different things, and obviously you can do breath work every single day, every single week,
Yeah?
whatever. So it's something that you can do at home. But I thought breath work was incredibly, incredibly healing.
You can connect to the same states in your body as doing DMT because your
Yeah.
DMT is naturally produced in the brain, right? So that's what you're doing, particularly with fire breath. You're activating that DMT secretion, and it will. Breath work can be just, if not more, healing than even plant medicine. So
Yeah.
there's all different routes that you can take to get there, right? In fact, I remember I was doing this challenge with cold plunge because I do not like the cold. I'm a I'm a tropical guy
Yeah.
at this point. Even though I grew up in Boston, I've lived in hot atmospheres for my entire adult life. So I remember I did this one cold plunge where I think it was 37-degree water,
Yeah.
and the challenge was to stay in there for 4 minutes. I did a breath work, like 3 minutes of breath work before I got in there. And while I was in there, my body first it started like ice burning, right? Like icy hot all over like every ounce of my body. And then I started to get so cold that I locked up. I couldn't move. And then I started to freak out a little bit. But
Mhm.
as I was starting to freak out, it brought back this memory of one time when I was 13 years old and I ran away from home. And it was in the middle of February in Massachusetts, and
Wow.
I couldn't find a place to stay. So as I'm walking, and it's snowing outside at night, it's like the middle of the night, and I found this shed next to a house that was unlocked, and I went in the shed, and I had like two duffel bags worth of clothes with me. I laid them down. I laid down on my duffel bags, and I was stuffing clothes down my jacket because I was so cold. My teeth were chattering so bad that I couldn't see straight. And I remember that like as I was trying to sleep, I was looking out the window. I started hallucinating that the window was my bedroom window. So I tried to
Mm.
get up, and when I tried to get up, my feet were numb, so I felt like I was on stubs, and I started to
Mhm.
get a little nervous because like
I'm gonna
my
lose my
body,
feet.
right. So finally, like after stomping my feet for about a few minutes, right, like I started feeling pins and needles. But I started reliving this experience when I was in that cold plunge when I was 13 years old. And I didn't
Mhm.
even know that that was still in me. Right. So that was an interesting
Yeah.
vulnerability that really, caught me by surprise. You never know. Even things like that maybe you forgot or have been repressed or suppressed that you have no clue that's in there. That's why voluntarily going into these thresholds of vulnerability to make yourself, optimal, make yourself a better version of yourself. There's there's always another layer. There's always a different vantage point. There's always a way that you can go into something that's unknown that will teach you about yourself. And in order to stay out of any kind of self-sabotaging, any kind of narcissistic or overly egoic desires or intentions, it's so important to really challenge yourself to do these things and embrace that vulnerability so that you can stay in your highest vibrational timeline, really.
Yeah. For myself, like, I always do healing work because I just wanna feel better. I don't wanna feel that, like, I can't or I'm triggered by shit. Like, I don't wanna be
Right.
triggered all the time, you know what I mean? Like, and we
Yeah.
are, like, a mom could trigger me or my kid could trigger me or, a desire, I wanna do this, but I can't because I'm a mom and I have to be home and I hate, like, all those things, right?
Yeah.
And then I have my husband, so, like, I literally have a million modalities of healing. And then I have my husband, I'm like, "Hey, you wanna do an appointment? Hey, you wanna do this?" He's like, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm fine." And he is fine. He does deal, but I can see the blocks. I
Yeah.
can see where he doesn't want to have a conversation, or he holds back,
Mm,
or like, and I'm watching it and he's like, no, but you don't understand. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, yes, but there's a reason. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of men do enough okay. They might not
right.
outwardly be, excuse me, breaking down in tears or triggered by the neighbor, or they shut it down and snap it off faster, or they like F you, dumb person on the street, whatever, and then they go back and get distracted by work or whatever.
Right.
You know, I think that our healing or our pain manifests different in men and women. And I think
Okay.
women tend to like put the pedal to the metal and they're like, I want to feel better. I don't want, you know, whereas men, I think that they can camouflage it a little bit better or stuff it down a little bit better. And then when it shows up, it's usually not pretty. Or, I mean, I volunteer sometimes at this nursing home in the memory care center. And I'm sitting there and I look to my left, this woman was volunteering with me. And there must have been 20 women and one guy.
Wow.
And I looked at her and I go, they're all dead. The rest of them are dead. And she said, yep. And men need to realize that they're healing in that moment of, it's fine. I don't care what my mom said. It's fine. I don't care what the neighbor said. And then never deal with it and just go to work and drink a beer on Friday night and watch the game on Sunday. That catches up to you. And it catches up to
100%.
you in real numbers at the end of your life. Show me a man who retires and I'll show you someone who's getting ready to pass away in the next 6 months to a few years. Because that distraction, all that noise finally shows up. The distraction of 50 hours of work, finally that loudness comes back, and we know most men die of a heart attack, you know, and that's where it's showing up, is the pain in the heart is finally so loud. And at that time you're
Right.
60, 65, 70, and it takes you out. I
Yeah.
think men need to realize that they can't distract themselves from these emotions causing effects to the body, that one begets the other. We don't get to escape this. It will
You're
find us,
absolutely right.
you know,
Yeah.
and yeah,
What I notice with a lot of men that I work with a lot of like high performers. What happens is the world tells us that, okay, you got to make a certain amount of money, you have to provide and support your family, you have to you have to have these things in place, and these all these things means that you're good,
you're good.
right?
Yep, you're
So
good.
it's the world teaching us how we're supposed to be. So if they have a good job that pays good money, that puts food on the table and roof over the house, and everybody, the kids and the wife are taken care of, even though you're doing things that you don't really like, it's a sacrifice that they have to make in order to be able to do these things that make them a good person. The
Right,
problem is that this is the world telling them who they are, and not them following their heart into their highest ambition, which will give a similar, if not better, outcome. But it's makes you that's the Rubicon that has to be crossed. And most men, when they get to that place of perceived success, then becomes a comfort that keeps them from wanting to go in that direction. I've seen it so many times.
yeah,
And but I also do believe we're in a time right now where things are changing. The energy is shifting, right? And things are clearing out. And I'm seeing a lot of men, younger and younger, that are coming down with like being diagnosed with cancer or autoimmune disease, or starting to get dementia at very early ages, because that energy can no longer be suppressed.
yeah,
So it's coming out whether they like it or not. And seeing this in all these, very, very powerful people, particularly like millionaires and billionaires that have created these structures in their life, but their health is falling apart, and they just like, I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll deal
yep,
with it tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. right?
Yep.
But it's because they have this infrastructure of a life that has worked for them for so long. And
Because
that is
society tells them you're winning.
right. And that
You
is
might not
the
be winning,
most
but everyone's
dangerous
telling
place
you.
to be.
Yeah.
It's so I'm grateful that, you know, I've been able to connect and reach um you know, a certain number of these kind of people and help them shift and turn their lives around. And the ones that have done the work, they've gone to even greater lengths and, you know, greater heights in their career, in their, but the big thing has been their relationships,
Yeah.
the relationship with their kids, their relationship with their loved ones, with their family. And there's just this deeper, much deeper sense of gratitude for everything that they have in their life, as opposed to the expectation that they need to have this, they need to, you know, they need to show the world. And with social media, that's the one thing that doesn't really help, because when you get a massive amount of feedback from social media. And if
Yep.
you're showing the world one thing, but not doing it behind the scenes, then they're still getting that feedback. I will say, though, that I believe that authenticity is really coming through in a new way. So
Mm.
we're also coming into a time where the people that are showing the world one thing, but doing another thing behind the scenes, people are going to see right through that now.
Yeah.
We're already
You
seeing it
can
on the world stage with all the powers that be, so to speak, right?
yeah.
And all that, the truth is coming out in droves and it's crumbling, and that's gonna trickle down, you know, throughout society. And I think
Right.
a new phase of leaders are being born that are empathically and emotionally connected. You know, I for many years I felt like I was cursed. I felt like
Mm.
I was doomed to just be broke and just not be able to have relationship, and you know, I had a lot of really bad stuff go down. But now that I'm older and I'm able to look back and see, I understand the blessings, that how I was protected. You know, my soul chose to go through all kinds of shit, and that's okay, because clearly it was strong enough to handle it. My mind didn't think that I was strong enough to handle it many times. But that just goes to show that, you know, the heart is stronger than the mind. And when you start to learn to tune into the heart, that'll blast through, you know, any resistance when you just be you in your heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big lesson for humanity right now, is to really own that.
Well, I think too, when I always look at it like before you came here, there was certain things that you wanted to accomplish, and you know, you weren't going to accomplish that sitting on the beaches of Turks and Caicos. You know, like I think that the greatest healers are squeezed the tightest,
Yeah.
and challenged, and because otherwise you just like you're like, what's the problem? Just go shopping. Like it's fine. Get a steak dinner. You know,
Yeah.
like then there's us that it's like you don't understand. There's a whole other way to live. Like, you know, we just want to drag everybody by the short hairs and be like, come
Right.
on, I swear to God, there's a way to heal because I've done it.
Yeah.
You know, show me someone that's been through it and I'll show you someone that's on a podcast talking about spiritual bodybuilding, right? You know,
100%.
um, and trying to help other people because we've done the work and we know how good it feels and we know there's another way of life. Have you ever thought of starting a podcast? Because I'm like sitting here like seeing like a million different episodes of leading men to their inner selves, you know, because you don't you're not the mold of the spiritual guru with, you know, like crystals all over it. Like you've done it. Like I
Yeah.
think that
So
your leadership
I
voice would really stand out.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. I did have I was very active on my YouTube channel for many years. Just never took off like I wanted it to. I'm very active on my Instagram right now, but I'm more interested in doing public speaking and
Okay.
working with, like, in person with groups of people. I like getting in there, and because I can feel the energy and I can interpret it, and I love being, like, you know, just right in front of someone and being
Yeah.
able to really impact them in that kind of way. So that's been more my approach lately. Um, and I've been getting on a lot of podcasts that are not mine, you know, to spread my message. But I will keep that in mind because you're not the first person that said that to me.
I just think that we need a voice, and you're such a conundrum.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think
I'm an
that we
anomaly.
need someone to go, "Hey, look, I've done," because it's not just, it's funny because if you were just a bodybuilder that's talking about this, you could be a flake that's just a bodybuilder who's like, but it's like, okay, bodybuilder, military, and ayahuasca? Like, wait a second. We need to pause here. Like, I just think
Unique
it's
combination of
really,
experiences.
yeah, and the childhood and the, you know what I mean, you've done the work. And I think that it's fascinating. And you like the breath work and plant medicine and all these things that I think would speak to men. I mean, we see Tony Robbins talking about breath work quite a bit, like,
Oh yeah.
and he's like all into that and the importance of it. And also, like, I have been paying attention to what I'm calling lazy lungs. And
Lazy
I'm
lung.
serious, like, when people don't work out, they don't get oxygen to that lower lobe of the lungs, and they're
Ah,
starting to get, like, lazy lungs because they never need to take those deep breaths to get them up the hill or to get them through the bike ride or to get them through the bench press. And I'm watching, like, my older parents and other people, and I'm like, "Oh, you have lazy lungs. You need to do some deep breathing because your lungs are lazy. They're not getting the oxygen everywhere." And they're like, "I never thought about that." I'm like, "Yes,
lazy
you need to
lungs.
have
That's
that
great.
deep." Seriously. So I think breath
Yeah,
work isn't just mindfulness. I think that it really is almost like this cardiac or cardio exercise that's getting that pulmonary kind of expansion, that if you are just being leisurely walking and taking your life in stride, you're not getting that deep breath that I think that is important for us to get.
100%. Yeah, that's also a threshold within the body. But I think it's actually what when you say that, the first thing that comes to my mind is the diaphragm. The
Yeah.
diaphragm is the muscle that moves the whole thoracic cavity in and out, right? And that the diaphragm is the gateway from the solar plexus to the heart chakra. It's also deeply embedded with the vagus nerve. Not to
Mhm.
mention, it also is deeply connected, fascially speaking, to the psoas. And the psoas is the deepest muscle in the human body. And that's where the hara or our kundalini energy sits. So when you strengthen, when you test the threshold of your breath and optimize the oxygen carbon dioxide ratio in the body, that optimizes the Bohr effect. And then all those things will help the gut and the brain communicate better,
Mhm.
right? And it'll really optimize your connectivity to everything else, right? Because
Yeah.
it's also connecting the energetic centers all the way through your body. So there's many layers to that, and you're absolutely right. If you don't use it, you lose it. So it'll atrophy, and you
Yeah.
can see when as people get older and they don't do the work, you can literally feel the atrophy in their posture, in the way they talk, and the way and it's a slow burn. It's like a slow death,
Yeah.
right? And then other people that I see that are now in their 60s or 70s that have been doing the work, it's the exact opposite. They become more alive, more childlike. They become more connected to their body. And I've seen guys in their 70s that are still shredded,
Yeah.
and they're walking around and still like living like they're 30, 40 years old, but
Yeah.
hanging on to that youth. And that youth, when we grow up, I don't like the term growing up, because I feel like a true being in your true like grown up self is really reintegrating your inner child and
Yeah.
being childlike, because that's where your creativity comes from.
Yep.
And in order to have that childlike energy, you have to be connected to all parts of you,
Yeah.
right?
I've done a
So,
lot of healing work lately. I discovered this new healing modality called MAP. And as soon as I had one appointment for myself, I'm like, oh my God, I have to know everything about this. And so
okay.
I've been learning it and using it with clients. And my husband said to me, I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up because you are so less tense.
Oh,
And what I recognized is that all of my strength of like he would get a job and he would go to his job and then I would stay back and pack the house and sell the house and take care of the kids and everything's fine. And then he'd get a new job and we would move and he would go and then I would stay and pack the house and sell the house. You know, the whole thing, right? Be the good
Right.
wife. And never bitch, never complain. It was always like, you got this, babe. And it's like, no one was really cheering me on, including like, it was just be the good wife.
Right.
And I realized what I was realizing is that I was becoming too strong,
Yeah.
too hardened to
Right.
keep that facade of everything's fine, everything's good, I can handle everything, I promise I won't complain. And he never asked me to do not complain. Like he's not that
Right.
guy.
You're
But
doing
I
what you
didn't
thought
want
was
to
right.
be that wife,
Right.
you know, that wife.
Of course.
And so not ever being that person over the past 19 years, you get harder and harder and harder, and everything is like, is the house clean? Are the kids gone? Are the bills paid? Is everything handled? And you're like literally, can't, there's no oxygen left. And the
Right.
thing I realized through this healing process is that that when you start removing those layers and you realize what you're doing, like what this facade that I have, and internally I was blaming my life on a lot of my things because that's how I saw it in my head, because it's like, I have to do this so I can't do anything for myself. I have to do this because and it's weird, like you don't even realize you're the boiling frog.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're walking around the house with the stick up your ass so far because you're just like, you're not human anymore. You're not really feeling, you're floating. And I think
Programming.
that, yeah, you're programmed to be the good wife. You're programmed to
Right.
be the good mom. And I think that when we get in touch and realize, like, I'm not having fun anymore. Like, I'm not laughing. I'm not joy. I might laugh, but I
Right.
also quit drinking a year and a half ago. So, like, I don't get to fake it. I don't get to have a
Right.
couple tequilas and let loose and devoid myself from my responsibilities. And I think
Right.
as we start to step into, like you were saying, this new era here, we need to go like, am I joyful? Do I even like being married? Is this fun? Because I don't think it's necessarily always the marriage. It's you. It's the
We're
shit that you put on your own shoulders and in your own brain of what's supposed to be. So I decided, I'm like, I'm taking an improv class. I'm going to Chicago once a week. Screw the whole family. They'll figure it out. I'm having fun, and I started
yeah.
realizing that I've been a mom for 30 years. And it's like, time's of the essence. Like, I want to have fun and be a more joyful mom, a more joyful wife. Like,
Love it.
and I think that we're so focused on what success looks like and what a good husband does and what a good wife does and what a good student does, that
Yeah.
this becomes way less fun.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. I mean, like there's been a difficulty of mine too to have fun in life,
Yeah.
and it makes you just feel dead inside, right?
It's like, what's the
You're
point?
overburdened with this sense of responsibility, but if you're doing the responsibility that is right for you, it's not necessarily going to be effortless, but you're going to have fun putting the effort in.
Yeah.
Right. So obvious, and I think we all get off track every now and then in our life sometimes, right? We go through phases and chapters. So this is a good reminder, to everyone out there watching, right? Like, where are you at right now? And why are you there?
Chicago.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just put yourself in check. And then
Yeah.
if you ain't having fun, go have fun. Go figure it
Yeah.
out. Go do something.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you're taking everything so seriously, then maybe it's time to go, okay, how did I get here? Because I
Yeah.
didn't even realize I got anywhere. I just noticed there was tension
Mm,
and this seriousness,
yeah.
that I was nervous all the time, and then as I did this map stuff, I was realizing that it was tracking back to my childhood, that if the house was clean, if
Yeah.
everything was done,
Mm,
then I could go have fun.
right.
And so as an adult, I would see my kids leave shit around the house. and the house wasn't clean. And so if the house isn't clean, I can't have fun. So I was starting to realize that I was like, this all was programming.
Yeah.
And that I was still living inside of this childhood program that if everything's not perfect, you can't have fun. And of course, nothing's
Mhm.
ever going to be perfect when I have two
No.
teenagers. And so I was like,
Mhm.
I'm making myself crazy. This program isn't working for me. I'm programmed, I'm using the playbook from my 8-year-old self.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
This isn't working. My husband doesn't give a shit if the kids' rooms are clean or dirty. Like it doesn't phase him. This is my own psychosis.
Yeah.
And so I started recognizing the programs even more so. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're, tense all the time, there's a program running, I promise.
Yep. And that's when you got to just stop and feel it and look
Yeah.
within and start asking those questions. Right. And
So good.
typically it takes a certain catalyst to even bring awareness to this.
Yeah.
But if you're already watching content like this, then you already know something's off.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to take an action step. You got this.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I so appreciate you being here. The Biohackers Guide to Spiritual Bodybuilding. This guy has done it all. Combat veteran, best-selling author, bodybuilder, plant medicine facilitator. Do you put your plant medicine? Everyone's always asking me about plant medicine in the United States. Do you?
So that's a big gray area.
Yeah.
And so I kind of keep that on the low.
Okay.
I it's usually like a friend of a friend or someone that knows me or knows of me,
Okay.
and I usually end up working with them like coaching wise at first, at least for a short period of time, so that I like to have a relationship already established with the people that I work with. Because I do small. I don't do big ceremonies. I like 8 to 10 people is about
Okay.
the max. Because
So
I
you
feel
do
like
coaching too? I didn't get that part.
yeah, I do coaching. I do body work. I do peptide therapy.
Okay.
Um, I, I like to have options for people. So if people are not into the plant medicine world, then there are ways that we can mitigate your nutrition through diagnostics and your supplementation and peptide therapy that can do just about as much, if not equivalent amounts of healing as plant medicine can. Of course, I think my personal opinion, plant medicine is the most efficient detoxification method
Boom.
out there. But not everybody's built for that.
Yeah.
And it has to be at the right time. And you have to really feel called to it and really be ready for it, because it will crack you open and it will change your life, as I'm sure
Yeah.
you have know from experience.
Yeah. No
So
joke.
so there are many ways that awakening and clarity and shifting in your life can happen. And so I like to utilize every tool in my mental armory to be able to support people in getting to that place.
I
And
love this.
also, I'd like to add to the Biohackers Guide to Spiritual Bodybuilding. It's not just about the traditional bodybuilding explanation. Spiritual bodybuilding is about building every body that you have: your etheric body, your emotional body, your physical body, your astral body. And adding biohacking into the mix, it goes into the insight behind the intention of why you're doing what you're doing, about the spiritual meaning behind literally the philosophy of bodybuilding, what it means to break down tissue spiritually and regrow it and recover from it. Right. So it's the process of seasons in our lives where we break down and then we have to recover and then we have to heal. Right. And so it looks at all the intentions behind whatever it is that you do. So whether you're playing tennis or pickleball or powerlifting or bodybuilding or martial arts, the same fundamental principles apply to every circumstance. So spiritual bodybuilding is about really thriving and testing your own thresholds in whatever it is that drives you doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a bodybuilder. It means
I
that
love that.
you are seeking the best version of yourself in all the different areas of your life.
I love that. I need to get my husband and me a copy.
All
We
right.
planned this very quickly, so I didn't get to get a copy from you, but,
Awesome.
and my daughter, she's 17 and she's in the gym every single day. She's very, very committed. She's
Yeah.
got her grandfather's bug in her.
Ah,
And actually, I always worked out my whole life. My husband, he has, weightlifting champions from Iowa when he lived there. So, I mean, like, she comes from a
okay.
long line of people who like to, lift weights, and but I would like to see her. It's hard because they get the information from the, social media.
Of course.
So whatever social media tells her,
Yeah.
I'm the biggest idiot. Grandpa doesn't know enough. Even, you know what
Uh,
I mean? Like, and so
that's a
we're
tricky one.
always in a constant battle from social media and information, which can be tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I love that so much. And your website is spiritualbodybuilder.com. Super easy.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're also a spiritual bodybuilder on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So those are
Yeah.
super easy. This will all be in the show notes as well. And then can people book with you on your website, or how do they book with you, like, for any of this stuff? All on there,
Yeah,
they can find you?
just go to the services link at the top of the website, and it'll bring you right to my services. You can book right there.
I love this so much. Thank you very much for sharing everything today. This is like melding all the worlds together. It's like I can have a conversation with you as a man, as a bodybuilder, as a spiritualist, as a breathwork person, as like it's
Yeah,
so good. I cannot believe you've sat that many times for
yeah.
ayahuasca.
It was a whole chapter of my life where
Whew.
me and the spirit of ayahuasca just really got intimately connected. I've had some
Yeah.
pretty wild experiences on ayahuasca. I love ayahuasca.
Good for you. You are a powerhouse in my book. I sat,
Thank
back
you.
to back 2 ceremonies, and I was begging for people to pray for me, and I
Well,
got
once
in the
you
shaman's face. It was a lot. I
oh,
was
two ceremonies, you mean you did 2 nights or you did 2 separate times of 2 or 3
one
nights?
time, 2 nights. The first night was
Okay.
rainbows and unicorns,
Ah,
literally singing. What was I singing in my head? Landslide and Fleetwood Mac songs. I'm not kidding.
I
And
believe it. I
then
believe it.
then the next day was like they were like, I'm like, "Oh god, I have this." And of course I was judging everyone. I'm like, "Oh my god, look at them throwing up. They must be so toxic. Oh my god, look at them throwing up."
Oh,
Judging
boy.
everyone the first night. Yeah.
No bueno.
Yeah.
Nope,
Yeah,
you don't wanna do
exactly.
that.
Second night, they're like, "Okay, if you are feeling called," because I had 2 cups the second night, So, the people that only had the 1 cup, they were like, "Okay, if you wanna come and eat, that's fine." And then I had my second cup, and as soon as everyone got up to eat, all hell broke
Bam.
loose.
Oh, boy. Yeah, she'll teach you for sure.
Yeah.
So when I say ceremony, a ceremony is 2 to 3 nights in a row. So you've done 1 so
Yes.
typically you need, like, after the 3rd or 4th ceremony is when you get all that gunk out of your system. And then ayahuasca starts to become more of a teacher, because
Okay.
now you've gotten accustomed to the darkness, and even with the dark stuff, right? It's cleaning you out, and she's teaching you, so it's very uncomfortable. But the more you learn to surrender to the discomfort, then it starts to come back to the educational part. I'll call it faster and faster,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
And just
I
part.
got a lot out of it, and I quote it all the time, what I saw and, all that good stuff. It definitely showed me the realities, but wowzers, it's
Yeah,
no joke. But I tell everyone, everyone should absolutely do it, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, and I delivered a 10-pound baby.
cool. Oh, wow. Okay,
So,
that's saying something.
but I also think that everyone should do it. I think that everyone should absolutely do it in their own time when they are called to do it, and if it speaks to them. but it will give you the reality of the planet and where you sit and like the matrix and the nonsense and all the things. So
It shows you truth.
yeah, shows you
That's
the
what it
truth.
does. That's
Yep.
really at the very core. And sometimes you won't understand the truth right away. Sometimes it takes a
Yeah.
little while to unfold.
Yeah, you got to integrate.
And just a note on that, because I actually made this mistake. You'll get a lot of downloads, a lot of information. Never always wait at least 7 days before you make a life-changing decision after a ceremony.
Yes.
You do
Oh,
not.
when I was done that second night and woke up the next day, I'm like, I'm gonna do I'm gonna, I'm gonna open up a spiritual retreat and get
Yeah,
money from people. And I'm like, they said, do not do anything. And I was just like, oh wow, I was really on some shit right then because
yeah.
like all of that dissipated, thank God.
You have to let
But
that move through you first before you
yeah,
make any big decision.
get back to planet Earth.
Yeah, 100%. That integration is critical.
Oh, I love that so much. It's so good. Well, thank you so much for being here
Pleasure.
today. Everyone, go check out his book, The Biohackers Guide to Spiritual Bodybuilding, and spiritualbodybuilding.com, everywhere, website, and all the locations. So I so appreciate you being here and come back anytime.
It's been a pleasure and honor speaking with you. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys, I'll see you here next week. If you know anyone that needs to hear all of this good stuff, please send it to them because this is a voice that needs to be heard. So thanks so much, guys. See you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening. If you would like to connect on a more personal level, head over to meredythwillits.com or on Instagram at Meredyth with a Y for behind-the-scene footage and outtakes. Please subscribe and come back each week for more Meredyth with a Y. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.